It was almost midnight when I boarded the last train home. The city was quiet, and the platform was nearly empty. Just a few people standing far apart, faces hidden behind their phones or the glow of dim lights. The doors hissed shut behind me, and the train began to move. It was one of those older subway lines, flickering lights, humming rails, and the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing. I sat down near the middle of the carriage. There were only 3 other passengers. An old man staring at the floor, a woman in a gray coat whispering to herself, and a young guy wearing headphones. Everything was fine until the train entered the tunnel. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went completely out for about 5 seconds. When they came back, the old man was gone. I thought maybe he'd moved to another car, but the train hadn't stopped yet. I looked around, there was nowhere he could have gone. Then I noticed something else. The woman in the gray coat wasn't whispering anymore. She was staring at me, dead still, her eyes wide open, mouth slightly open, like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. I looked away quickly, pretending not to notice. The train kept moving, the sound of the wheels echoing through the tunnel. Then, over the speaker, a distorted voice crackled. Next stop, Black Ridge Station. But there was no such station on this line. I knew this route by heart. There was no Black Ridge Station. The woman suddenly stood up and walked toward the far end of the car, where the door connected to the next coach. She stopped halfway, turned around, and said in a shaky voice, "You shouldn't be here." Before I could react, the lights went out again. When they came back on, she was gone. The only person left was the guy with headphones, except now he wasn't wearing them. He was looking straight at me, smiling. He whispered something, but I couldn't hear it over the rumbling of the train. So I leaned in slightly, and that's when I saw it. His reflection in the window wasn't moving. He turned his head slowly and said, almost laughing, "Black Ridge Station, end of the line." The train screeched to a stop. The door slid open. Outside was nothing but darkness. A tunnel with broken tiles. No lights, no signs, no sound. And then I heard them. Footsteps. Coming from the platform, soft at first, then louder. Many of them. I ran through the cars, trying to find another passenger. Another exit, but every door I opened led to the same carriage, again and again, like I was trapped in a loop. The lights dimmed red. The intercom buzzed one last time. "Welcome back." That was the last thing I remember before I woke up on an empty platform at dawn. The sign above me said Black Ridge Station, but when I tried to find it on a map later, it didn't exist. It was close to midnight when I boarded train 47, heading to my hometown. I had missed the earlier one because of work, and this was the last train for the night. The platform was almost empty, just a few sleepy faces, a flickering light, and the sound of the wind whistling through the tracks. The moment I stepped inside, I felt something off. The train was dimly lit, humming quietly. I expected at least a few other passengers, but there was just one man sitting at the far end, wearing an old trench coat and a hat pulled low over his face. I chose a seat near the middle, plugged in my earphones, and tried to relax. But as the train started moving, I noticed something strange. Every time we passed the station, no one got on and no one got off. And yet, somehow, I could hear footsteps echoing through the empty carriages. At first, I thought maybe it was the train staff, but there was no conductor, no announcement, just the rhythmic thud of the tracks and that faint sound of walking, getting closer, then fading away. After about 30 minutes, the train entered a long tunnel. The lights flickered, then went completely out for a second. When they came back on, the man in the trench coat was gone. My heart started racing. I stood up, looking around. The entire coach was empty. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A wet handprint on the window right next to where he had been sitting. It was sliding downward, as if someone had just pressed their hand there from the outside. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath fogging up. The tunnel seemed to go on forever. That's when the train slowed down suddenly, screeching as if someone had pulled the emergency brake. The lights went out completely this time. From the darkness came a faint sound, a whisper, right behind me. "You shouldn't have boarded this train." I froze. My whole body went numb. I turned around slowly, and there he was. The man in the trench coat, only now I could see his face. Or rather, what was left of it. His skin was pale, half burned, with empty eye sockets staring straight through me. I stumbled backward, trying to scream, but the sound wouldn't come out. He leaned closer, his voice hollow. "They never stopped the train. We never made it home." And then the lights flickered back on. I was alone again. The train was moving smoothly, as if nothing had happened. When it finally stopped at my station, I ran off without looking back. I told one of the night guards what I saw, but he just stared at me for a long time and said, "Son, that train hasn't run for years. Train 47 derailed in 1998. Everyone on board died." I looked back down the tracks. There was no train behind me, just darkness.
It was almost midnight when I boarded the last train out of Blackridge Station. The air outside was freezing, and the fog was so thick that even the glowing yellow station lights looked dim and hazy. I had just finished a late shift at work. I remember checking the clock on the wall, 11:47 p.m. The final train to the city was leaving in 3 minutes. There were only a few passengers waiting, all of them silent, buried in their coats. When the train arrived, it screeched to a stop with a metallic groan that echoed through the empty platform. As I stepped in, I realized something strange. There was no conductor. The lights inside flickered dimly, and a low humming sound came from somewhere deep down the carriage. I sat near the window, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. The train started moving, slow at first, then faster, but the sound it made, it wasn't right. It wasn't the usual rhythmic clatter of wheels on rails. It was distorted, like metal grinding against bone. There were only 3 other passengers that night. A woman in a red coat sitting 2 rows ahead, an old man staring blankly out the window, and a teenage boy with headphones tapping his foot. After about 10 minutes, the train entered a tunnel. Everything went completely dark for a moment. Even the emergency lights blinked out. When they came back on, the woman in red was gone. Her seat was empty, but her purse lay open on the floor. I looked around. The old man was still staring out the window, but his reflection looked different. In the glass, his mouth was moving even though he wasn't speaking. The boy with headphones hadn't noticed a thing. I was about to ask him if he saw where the woman went when the train's lights began to flicker again. They went out for just a second, and when they came back on, the boy was gone too. Only his headphones were left on the seat, music still faintly playing. I froze. My heart was racing. I stood up and walked toward the next carriage, calling out, "Hello, anyone here?" No answer. The entire train felt wrong. The windows were pitch black, as if the train wasn't moving through a tunnel anymore, but through something else. The lights dimmed again, and in that brief darkness, I heard whispering. Dozens of voices whispering in unison, calling my name. When the lights came back on, I was no longer in the same carriage. The seats were old, torn, and covered in dust. The windows were shattered. I could see fog drifting inside the train. On the wall, smeared in something dark, were the words, "You shouldn't have boarded." Then I saw them, the passengers. Dozens of pale faces staring at me from the far end of the carriage. eyes black and hollow, their mouths opening wider than humanly possible. I turned and ran, slamming through doors until I reached what looked like the front of the train. The controls were unmanned, but the radio crackled, and through the static, I heard a voice whisper, "You're not supposed to be here. Your stop was long ago." The train began to slow down. I saw a faint station light ahead. I didn't care where it was. I jumped out as the doors creaked open. When I turned back, the train was gone. No sound, no lights, no trace of it ever existed. I later found out that the last train from Blackridge had been discontinued 10 years ago, after a derailment killed everyone on board. They said the wreck still lies buried somewhere beneath the city. And sometimes on foggy nights, you can still hear it passing through the tunnels, filled with the dead who never reached their stop.